The city of Corpus Christi is calling for an emergency council meeting to vote on the Inner Harbor desalination plant, as the city could face water curtailment sooner than the expected November deadline. A San Patricio County jury awards $198 million in a case tied to a 2012 Portland shooting. 3 city council members have requested a petition to remove the mayor from office. This is South Texas Midday. I'm Rob Boskamp. Thank you for joining me on this Thursday, March 12th. Corpus Christi officials have called for a special emergency meeting of the City Council to vote on its proposed Inner Harbor desalination project. In a Facebook post on Wednesday, Corpus Christi Mayor Paulette Guajardo said the vote is needed for the city to utilize $750 million in funding allocated by the state of Texas to help expand Corpus Christi's water supply. The announcement comes after Governor Greg Abbott criticized city leaders over their management of the region's growing water concerns and threatened that the state may need to intervene to ensure residents and businesses have enough water. Guajardo said the meeting date for next week will be announced by tomorrow. And Corpus Christi residents could face water curtailment sooner rather than later, pending updated timelines on the city's water supply. 3 News reports that State Senator Adam Hinojosa sent a letter to city leaders indicating that water restrictions could begin as early as May instead of November. The earlier date is based on updated water supply modeling that has not yet been finalized. City officials say the model should be ready for review at the next city council meeting this Tuesday, March 17th. Representative Denise Villalobos also told 3 News that city officials informed her of 3 potential scenarios for when curtailment could begin: May 9th at the earliest, September 12th another possibility, and this November as best case. She expects the presentation outlining scenarios to be given during Tuesday's meeting. And an update on area water reservoirs: Lake Corpus Christi is at 9.8% capacity, Choke Canyon Reservoir is at 8.2%, Lake Texana, about 8 miles east of Edna, is at 55.9% capacity. 3 Corpus Christi City Council members are requesting a petition to remove Mayor Guajardo to be placed on the agenda for discussion and possible action. On Wednesday, at-large council member Carolyn Vaughn, District 5 council member Gil Hernandez, and District 3 council member Eric Cantu submitted a council action request to the city to place the item on the March 24th City Council agenda. The petition was filed last August after the findings of a lawsuit between the city of Corpus Christi and Ajit David. The hotelier is suing the city after the city granted a $2 million incentive to project developers Devin Bacta and Philip Ramirez of Elevate QOF LLC for a local Homewood Suites hotel. The developers sought the Type B sales tax incentive in 2023. It was the first time in Corpus Christi that such public funds have been used to subsidize a hotel. Mayor Guajardo shared a statement with 3 News on Wednesday explaining that independent reviews by multiple agencies found no wrongdoing and the push for her removal is, quote, politically motivated, unquote. A San Patricio County jury has awarded $198 million in damages to Christine Chapa in a civil case connected to a 2012 attack at a Portland park. 3 News reports the verdict this week follows several days of testimony in San Patricio County State Court. The case dates back to the June 2012 attack at Violet Andrews Park in Portland, where Chapa and her girlfriend Molly Olguin were assaulted and shot in the head. The lawsuit sought damages connected to the attack and its lasting impact on Chapa, according to Houston attorney Tony Busby. David M. Strickland was convicted in 2016 of the crimes and sentenced to life in prison without possibility of parole. The number of detainees at the Immigrant Detention Center in Dilley has dropped since late January. San Antonio Democratic Congressman Joaquin Castro has visited the South Texas site several times in recent weeks.
When I went there first in January, there were 1,100 people there at Dilley. There are now only about 450. And so I'm glad that all of the voices are making a difference. I believe that the public outcry is making a difference.
100 of the current detainees are children. It's unclear how many have been deported or released for further litigation. A report from the Marshall Project mentions that ICE officials have coordinated transfers from Dilley to the Holding Institute Community Center in Laredo. If filling up your car feels more expensive lately, you're not imagining it. Gas prices are climbing again across Texas, driven in part by rising crude oil prices amid escalating tensions in the Middle East. The Texas Newsroom's Lucio Vasquez reports.
AAA says the average price for a gallon of regular gas in Texas is now about $3.21. That's up from roughly $2.55 last month. The main reason is the rising price of crude oil, the main ingredient in gasoline.
When you look at the bigger picture over the last week or two, you see an increase in crude oil prices. And that's after the U.S. intervention in Iran.
Daniel Armbruster with AAA Texas says oil prices have surged in recent weeks as markets react to U.S. and Israeli attacks on Iran. He says the conflict has raised concerns about possible disruptions to oil shipments.
How that plays out in the coming weeks is going to be really important as to how long we see elevated gas prices.
Armbruster says it's still difficult to predict whether prices will continue rising in the weeks ahead. But for now, Texas drivers are still paying about 30 cents less than the national average. I'm Lucio Vasquez in Houston.
The Lavaca County Elections Department is warning voters about a potential voter registration issue tied to online driver's license renewals. 25 News Now reports that election officials say some residents who renewed their driver's licenses online through the Texas Department of Public Safety and checked the box to register to vote may not have had that information transmitted to the county elections office. Voters can check their status on the Lavaca County website or contact the Lavaca County Elections Department. Tejano singer and Democratic congressional candidate Bobby Pulido is turning a political jab into a campaign moment. Pulido's opponent in November, Republican Congresswoman Monica De La Cruz, suggested the race for a seat in the U.S. House isn't about choosing entertainment for a quinceñera. Pulido's campaign responded with an invitation to families to invite Pulido to perform at their celebrations. And in sports, the University of Texas Rio Grande Valley women's basketball team ended their season Wednesday with a loss in the semifinals of the Southland Conference Tournament. The 4-seeded Vaqueros fell to top-seeded McNeese 67-52. The Vaqueros wrap up their season with a 20-13 record. And technical issues have delayed the historic Artemis II mission in recent weeks, and when it does launch as soon as April 1st, it will be the flight directors at Houston's Johnson Space Center navigating the historic operation. Houston Public Media's Michael Atkinson has an in-depth look inside Mission Control.
Picture in your mind Mission Control at the Johnson Space Center. Odds are you might envision a Hollywood portrayal of it.
This is Houston. Say again, please.
Houston, we have a problem.
The 1995 film Apollo 13 depicts the real-life NASA mission that nearly ended in disaster after an explosion on the spacecraft forced the crew to abort their mission and return to Earth. The film dramatizes Mission Control and its flight directors. Here's actor Ed Harris playing Apollo 13's flight director Gene Kranz.
We never lost an American in space. We're sure as hell not going to lose one on my watch. Failure is not an option.
In reality, the goal for a flight director is for their job to be much more boring.
We want everything to be working as they've trained for, as they've expected it to work.
David Alexander is the director of the Rice University Space Institute.
They want the systems to do their job. They want the astronauts to do their job.
Now, Mission Control at Houston's Johnson Space Center is preparing for its most complicated mission in more than 50 years. Artemis II will bring NASA back to the moon for the first time since 1972. NASA is also in the middle of revamping the Artemis program with the goal of increasing the frequency of missions to at least one a year. That means Houston's flight directors will have even more on their plate. Jeff Radigan is the lead flight director for Artemis II. During a recent press conference, Radigan was asked if the mission was being rushed, even comparing Artemis to the disastrous Challenger explosion.
This is not a rush, and I actually take quite an issue with you using that word. That's not where we're at right now. There's a lot of preparation going on, but there absolutely are constraints.
As lead flight director, it's Radigan's responsibility to make sure nothing like Challenger or any of the other fatal missions in NASA's history happens.
In order for, at least me personally to call this mission fully successful, we need to go fly by the moon and bring the crew home safely and welcome them back with open arms.
From the Johnson Space Center in Houston, Radigan and a crew of several flight directors, controllers, and other experts will watch the Artemis II mission around the clock to ensure it follows the minute-by-minute plan laid out for it. Here's Rice's David Alexander again.
They're all working in concert to monitor these complex systems, and the flight director is the one who's getting that input from everyone and is the one who ultimately makes the decision.
It's one of the most storied roles within NASA's legacy, and one that's stayed consistent since the earliest days in NASA's history.
And it's really stood the test of time.
That's Fiona Ankowiak. She's going to be one of the flight directors within Mission Control, navigating the 4 astronauts flying to the moon.
Kind of the core principle where you have a single flight director, and when they are on console for their shift, they have final authority to make any decision needed for a quick turnaround decision. has really stuck true.
I asked her if the role of flight directors is always as high stress as the film Apollo 13 makes it out to be.
I would say we never are relaxed when we're on console. But the good news is that not every minute is as stressful as those scenarios.
At the end of Apollo 13, Tom Hanks, who portrays astronaut Jim Lovell, takes a moment to recognize those flight controllers in Houston.
Thinking of the thousands of people who worked to bring the three of us home. I look up at the moon and wonder, when will we be going back? And who will that be?
The film came out 23 years after the end of the Apollo program. Now, 30 years later, the answer may be in sight. I'm Michael Atkinson in Houston.
And that is the latest news and information on South Texas Midday. I'm Rob Boskamp. Your community arts calendar and more is on the way.